Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a full breakdown of the applied damage pals. If you are new to the channel and you guys, any of you want more information on these in particular pals, I have done individual videos for each one of these, so you can find those in the Is It Worth It playlist that I have on the channel. These at the bottom are kind of the only way to get these applied damage. So with ice, it's Stallion. With dragon, it's Chillet. With water, it's Azarobi. With grass, it's Verdash. And with dirt or ground is Anubis. So these are the only ones that you can get that applied damage to your weapons with. When it comes to these in particular ones, they do have kind of niche stuff. Anubis is a fairly strong fighter as well, as their work suitability is incredibly good. With Verdash, he also has very good work suitability stuff for about a mid to early game, not early, but mid to late game before you get your Lylines going. He's a good alternative. When it comes to Verdash is partner skill, it's actually really dope that you get a lot of movement speed out of him. With the added movement speed, it's actually not a bad pal to fight with as well, as it is a fighting together pal, and you get enough movement speed to where you can dodge a lot of attacks. So that's one thing that's really good about Verdash. Azarobi, as I pronounce it, I don't know how you pronounce it, but hey, you pronounce it however you want. Worm water dragon thingy. Applies water damage, is, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've been told, it is the fastest water pal that there is. Again, from what I've been told, once you get swift on it, it's not too bad getting around. And since it is a water type, combining this one with the electric that we have going on with the water that we get to apply to our damage, makes it to where we're doing 2 times damage. So that's one thing that is really good about Azarobi, even though you'll have to have a flyer to run around with it. When it comes to Chillet, there's some decent applications for him. Most of the people are using him specifically for the raid because he is a dragon type that applies dragon damage, and those of you who know, dragon is strong against dark pals, so it's not bad to go up against that. You could make a little bit of a faster one with swift, or maybe a little bit more tanky with burly body, or have the best of both worlds with that, with a vanguard and legend on top of that to be able to put out more damage and still get the benefits of being able to move and dodge and so on and so forth. Really good against Shadowbeak as well, considering that Shadowbeak is dark when it comes to Victor and Shadowbeak and the tower bosses. And then when you go against Paldius and Necromus, if you want to go out there at night and just fight Necromus first before you fight Paldius, then this is a good thing to take along with you as well. I think, to be honest, it's probably your best dragon type to run with because it is an applied damage, and since dragon types themselves don't have a way for you to buff their actual attack power with like booster pals, because there is no booster pals that do that, unfortunately. The only other alternative to that would be using its secondary elemental type. So with Chillet, you'd stack Foxicles behind it, or when you got your Yormantide, you do Kelpsies. You got your Yormantide Ignis, you do Rubies. Chillet is very useful, especially in early game as well, because you get him so early. Stallion. Now, this is pretty much the powerhouse here. A lot of defense, good speed, kind of like the best of everything. It does also enhance your shots off the back of it with the ice, so you're doing an increased bit of damage with that. This one I ran Legend, Burly Body, Swift, and Vanguard. Really good setup with this because we get the speed, we get a lot of defense, and we get a little bit of attack power if we really want to. On top of that, we get our attack power with the Vanguard. And because it is such a good pal to basically get up as much as you want it to, this one here I thoroughly enjoyed as well. It's a power-based one, or pal power-based one, however you want to put it. And we have 2,480 attack power on this. That's without any other buffs where we could put Foxicles behind it and have it go up even further. So really powerful pal, fairly good speed, and really good stamina on her. I really like Stallion. When it comes to to the next ones that I'm going to talk about specifically, it's more or less kind of a rating system at this point of which one I think is better over the other. Now, as far as applied damage for electric, when it comes to Beacon and U-Volt, Beacon's advantage is that you can quad stack because it's a flyer and you don't have to run another flyer behind it. Its biggest drawback is the defense and the lack of it, to be honest. Very glass cannon-ish, but that probably could be fixed if you put Burly Body behind it just to give it a bit more defense, at least more survivability. So you could definitely make it work, but as far as its drawbacks, definitely not that great to have the defense as low as it is. But yeah, put Burly Body on there, give it a rush or hot dog, and I think you're solid at that point. U-Volt, on the other hand, this one still has a food buff going, so I think its defense is around like 1,000 if I'm not mistaken, and that is without Burly Body, and that's just with Legend. Downfall about the U-Volt is that it is a bit slower and its health pool is pretty low. This is an alpha that I got, so cut like 800 points off of the health, so we're at like 5,000 health with an 80 IV. Other drawback is that you're gonna have to have a flyer with you if you want to get anywhere quick enough, at least to be able to ride around with it. Advantages with both of these guys is that they are electric, so you can use water attacks to dampen your enemy and then start doing double damage with the electric off of the back that you're doing as well. Both are really good. They have their advantages, they have their disadvantages, some stuff that could be done as far as the passives to make them better in their instances. In my opinion, I like U-Volt because of the defense that it does have in comparison to Beacon, but overall advantage with Beacon is you're going to be able to lay down more power and you can kind of fix the lack of defense. But yeah, personally, I like U-Volt over Beacon because of the defense. That's the only factor that I have in my decision making on that. But that's not to say that Beacon is very good, especially early, mid to early game. If I'm not mistaken, 29 is what he starts out with over there. So yeah, early into your mid game, I guess is where we will go with that. When it comes to Dark Pals, there are a lot of options. Early game, Nox is a shoe-in for it. Not too shabby, especially for an early pal that you can get. And if you really wanted to, before you start Godfin stacking, you could buff him up by getting a bunch of Hooker Tees as well. Again, early pals. So you could have a pretty decent powerhouse of a pal that you also have applied damage with as a fighting together pal, and boost it up with some Hooker Tees that you just catch and kind of throw in a couple of them to bring up that percentage. You're looking at a pretty decent pal, especially early game. Again, they're not that prevalent in the open world at night, but one thing that you can do is go into lower level caves, dungeons, and be able to find them pretty often in those. When it comes to Marwraith, this is something that you could breed for fairly early. It's another pal that I actually didn't really think about. It does have a bit of a defense problem, but it makes up for that with its mobility. The simple fact with it being able to do its little jumping thing is actually pretty neat, because when you have a lot of the AoE attacks that do like happen, most of the pals aim at the ground. So if you have it hit the ground, then you can usually hop over and be able to get enough hang time that it finishes the AoE, or at least you can get out of the way of it. Such as Blizzard Spike or Fireball. We demonstrated that in the video with Blizzard Spike, especially, of being able to jump over it. Weird little dude. Also, you can breed for them very early, a Chickpea and a Chillet, and you could have yourself a Marwraith. Only downside of that is that you would have to wait to get its saddle, which is the main thing with it. This is applies dark damage to the player's attacks while mounted. So that's where Nox kind of goes a little bit better, but when you get the saddle at, I think it's level 23 I showed in the video, then yeah, this is not a bad option for like a early-ish to early mid dark damage pal. Pyron Noct. Now, I do like the Pyron, but the Pyron Noct is, how should I say, not necessary with the options that you have with the dark pals, because there's 5. Pyron, though, is very fast and is able to maneuver very good. Very, very quick with the dodges, being able to move back and forth to avoid damage. So even though it does have a lack of defense, it's really not that bad. But then we have our better option. Probably hands down one of your best mid-game pals is the Hell Zephyr. You don't get the saddle till 30 something, if I'm not mistaken. 33, you get that. So you get that at the same time that you get the Pyron Noct saddle as well. well. So better option is the Hell Zephyr. Hell Zephyr is just a powerhouse in general. This is not the one that we were using, but they generally have really good defense, really good attack power, decent health pool, and again, being able to apply dark damage. By this point in time in the game, you'd probably be in breeding stages and doing your mass breeding of like Hookerties to get your dark damage up, and or your Gobfins at that point to get your attack power up if you're trying to go that route. And last but certainly not least, Frost Stallion Noct. Again, it's basically a dark cloned version of the Frost Stallion. Frost Stallion Noct has the same thing where it enhances the dark damage that you do off the back of it as well as apply it, and it enhances the dark damage that itself does. So with Frost Stallion Noct and Frost Stallion, you can do both types of builds when it comes to these guys, as far as either having it like an attack pal or having it as a support for your attacks off the back of it. It's not really a wrong way to build these guys. I mean, there is a wrong way, but if you're trying to not do the wrong way, then it's hard to make a bad one. Very good pal. Once you got your Frost Stallion, then you can get your Frost Stallion Noct by breeding the Hell Zephyr. So that's another reason to have a Hell Zephyr with your mid to late mid. And out of all of these guys, I mean, clear winner is Frost Stallion Noct. There's no doubt about it. Close second place, though, I'll give it to Hell Zephyr. Pyron Noct, since it is so close related to it, it's not like that big of a deal to get one of these and breed them up or get the saddle for it or anything, especially when you get the saddle for the Hell Zephyr at the exact same time. So I would put the Pyron Noct actually last on this, but when it comes to the Maraith and Nox, I'd put them above the Pyron Noct just because you can get them a bit earlier than the Pyron, and Nox is just a really good early game pal. Alrighty, fire. When it comes to Wixen, I was actually surprised with this being a fighting together pal. Has really good attack power, and if you wanted to have something that you yourself are getting applied damage while the other one is attacking with like grass skills and fire attacks to then get that double damage from the elemental damage stacking, then she's a pretty good option. Not only that, but you can get her, that was oddly loud, as I was saying, you can get her really early as they spawn over at the small volcano area over in this little crevasse, and they spawn fairly low. Yeah, like we showed in the Wixen video, I mean, you get them, I think as low as 15 over here, maybe even lower. So yeah, Wixen, really good early, but in my opinion, she kind of gets outshined in late game, but people still use her for that. So at that point, it's kind of however you want to run it. But yeah, very good early, don't need a saddle, applied fire damage pal. When it comes to Ragnarok, Ragnarok is definitely one of my favorites. It is very fast on its top end. The applied damage is a definite beast thing to have, especially when you would usually use this, at least in my opinion, what I used when I went against Frost Stallion was a Ragnarok. And I've done it when I went against pretty much every pal of the top end level 50s that you go against. But yeah, Ragnarok, very good, very strong, good defense, decent health pool, decent attack power, and just a good applied damage pal. Especially for in mid, I'd say late, mid, early end, if that makes sense. Pyron. I love Pyron. Pyron's a very good pal when it comes to the fire type version. Since there is only 3 options when it comes to applied fire damage, it's definitely not a bad one to use. Decent defense, good health pool. Its overall attack power, we're not really worried about too much with that, but its overall quickness and being able to maneuver around, I personally like a lot. You're able to dodge stuff relatively easy and not get hit by much stuff. So the lack of defense would be a problem if that was the case, but it's already at 1,000 defense, so it's not that big of a deal. But this also has burly body on it, so it's a bit more of a powerhouse version of it, and I just don't have Swift on this one. But we've shown in that video in particular that the Pyron is very useful in that instance. The disadvantage, it's not a flyer, so you can only really do like a 3 stack of Gobfins when having another flyer. So at that point, why not go with Ragnarok? Ragnarok's better in that instance, but Pyron is still a good option. So when it comes down to it, out of all these pals of the applied damage type, you have a lot of variety as far as what you can choose from. When it comes to dark, electric, and fire, you got a lot of dark applied, 3 of the fire, and then only 2 of the lightning. But then when it comes to dirt, grass, water, dragon, and ice, then you're kind of pigeonholed at that point to get one of them. But usually in game, I always go with like a Ragnarok to get my Frost Stallion, and then take my Frost Stallion to get my Jet Dragon, and then take my Frost Stallion and breed it with a Hell's Effort to get the Frost Stallion knocked, to then go after Paldies and Necromis. When it comes to the passives that you are like looking to use on these in particular ones, there's a couple of different options that you have. If it is something that you're trying to kind of phase tank a bit more stuff, then Frost Stallion knock is not a bad option. And you can put, when it comes to you trying to like maybe be able to take a bit more damage than usual, then Burly Body is a really good option. I really like the combination of having like Burly Body, Swift, Musclehead, and Legend. Vanguard is also a really good option to have just if you're using it strictly for personal damage, but I'd put Musclehead on there if you're trying to get a little bit more damage out of the pal itself as well. But Burly Body, Swift, and Legend are a really good combination with either Musclehead or Vanguard. I did use Stronghold Strategist a bit, but because of the way that I stack my Gobfins or any of my other booster pals, is I always have Stronghold Strategist and Vanguard on all of them. So I usually get enough damage out of those, especially with the Gobfins, with them already having Vanguard on them, and their partner skill is a 20% increase on each one. You get the 20% from that, and then you got 10% from that. So you got 60% in total with 2 of them, and then 90 with 3, 120 with 4 of them. And when it does come to the applied damage pals, I would suggest running Gobfins because it's just going to crank up the power and even more so, especially when you're going against something that's weak to what you're running. So for instance, Frost Stallion is weak to fire. So if we have also Seed Mine on and we proc a Vine Wrap on Frost Stallion, then we're doing quadruple damage and you can bring her down very quickly. But yeah, I would say out of our top 3 out of this grouping is definitely going to be Frost Stallion knocked, and Ragnarok. Those are my top 3 personally. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like. If you enjoyed my content, drop a sub, and write down in the comments below what your top 3 applied damage pals are. Other than that, keep your willy washed, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.